The ACT English has changed. I have taken this new version twice, and this is how you should prepare for the ACT English in 2025. My name is Rebecca Beard, and I own a local and online tutoring and test prep company, and we consistently have helped students increase their ACT English scores by at least 5 points. What is new on this ACT English exam that you really need to know before you take the test? First of all, there is less questions than there used to be. They are more comprehension based. And then number 3, context is everything. Let's go ahead and break down examples that you are likely to see on test day. So the first type of new question that you might see on test day is these tone questions. They're really unique, and I haven't really seen them much on the old versions of the test. So how do you actually tackle this? So what is it? Number 6 is a good example. It says, which choice most effectively maintains the essay's tone? And a lot of students will just overthink later, what does tone mean? What you're actually looking for is the style and the way that the rest of the essay is being written. And so the examples that they give is live to yield, pull through and spawn, continue to churn out, or keep doling out. And if you were stuck or you're I don't know all these words, that is okay. You need to start by eliminating the ones that maybe just sound a little less fancy is where I would start. So if you look at J, keep doling out, that's like you're talking to a peer, so you would eliminate that one. This is a college entrance test. And then continue to churn out is another really kind of clunky way. And then pull through and spawn. G is what most students use, but if you don't know what the word spawn means, it's hatching. And so you don't want really the tree to hatch hearts. So the answer on number 6 is going to be F. Another key question that is coming up a lot is number 7. And I was just working with a student the other day on these type of questions. And then on number 7, they really struggled. And it's not because why you think. So the kicker is which choice is least redundant in context, which is really just a fancy way of saying which one repeats itself the least. The old term for this was brevity and being concise, but now they have asked this type of redundancy in context repeatedly. So if you look at the options here for number 7, it says utilizing the historical know-how they have. It's a little chunky. Then B is knowledge that the tribe members know about local plants. And then C, knowledge of local plants in the area. Or D, knowledge of local plants. You're seeing which one is actually going to pretty much say things in the most concise and simple way possible. So the answer on number 7 is D. Then if you go down to number 22, this is a common trap for students. It is the who, whom's. And so it's actually one of my favorite ones to go over. You actually don't know how to tell the difference between who and whom. Out of all the practice tests I have taken, fun little hack, whom is never the answer. Now, you can't hold me that to 100%, but I have never seen whom be the right answer. So the good news is you can go ahead and cross out that option. But number 22 is asking which choice makes the sentence most grammatically acceptable. You're going to have to see who they are talking about. I'm kind of giving away, or whose they are talking about. So who is going to refer to the subject. And in this context, it says, I glance back at the boys who have been lulled by the wonder of the song. If you put they have, that's a little clunky. And then whose would be a little bit more of a group. So on number 22, the answer is going to be F. The next thing that is being tested that a lot of students miss, and it's really simple, and the key that they miss is they're actually just not reading the question. So whenever you see these long, wordy questions, it sounds silly, but make sure you emphasize it and really, really focus. So number 3, the writer wants to emphasize the positive experience diners have at Atla's restaurant. So what they are actually asking is not which word best fits in to this section, but what is going to have the most positive experience. So you really don't have to read it in context. You just got to see which one matches the word positive. So you have thrilled, mystified, shocked, and startled, which The only really positive word on this one is going to be A. These I love because they feel honestly like freebies, which is really awesome, but a lot of students miss them simply because they are not reading it. The next concept is going to be dashes and commas, which honestly, most students struggle, most students panic. They used to ask a lot about semicolons, but on a lot of the practice tests, I am not finding too much about semicolons. So we're not going to talk about that one today. But a couple of things. So dashes, they're kind of commonly called an M dash. And the main way that they are used is to separate and extra info. You can use a single dash. It's not as common, but that's going to be just pretty much an explainer. So in context, we are going to look at it this way. So which choice makes the sentence most grammatically acceptable? On number 2, a lot of students panic because they are seeing tons and tons of dashes. But on this question here, and it's a little bit hidden in this picture, but it says using traditional Brazilian ingredients such as manic root and even blank. What you're looking for is where the sentence is going to break. So on the same thing as 2 dashes, 2 commas also separate extra info. That means you can remove it. And so on the situation here, what you're going to do is you're going to test, can you remove such as? The answer is no, or not quite like that. But on G, ingredients dash such as manic root. This one is correct because that's kind of the extra fluff. Okay, just a couple more concepts and then we will wrap up. Another commonly tested concept is the ITSs. And you have all learned this in middle school, but it's honestly been a hot minute. So to go over the ITS, which are on multiple questions on this ACT English question, ITS without the apostrophe is going to be the possessive and it's going to show ownership. The ITS with the apostrophe S is going to be it is. And then this with the apostrophe after the S is going to be not real or just fake. So how you test that in context is on number 40. Which choice makes the sentence most grammatically acceptable? So once you know the ITS, you know what they're focusing on. So on number 40, it says the multi-chamber construction of the Weaver nests has drawn comparisons to that of an apartment building. Indeed, the nests exemplify communal living at their most effective. So right off the bat, 40 is definitely not going to be F. It's a little bit awkward. And then you would test G, living when it's at its, or when it's at it is most effective. That one is a hot mess and even hard to read aloud. Then H is at it is effective because of that apostrophe. And that one is awkward. So it's going to be J, at its most effective. The next one is going to be number 8, which is going to be on comma usage. And most students love to throw in commas like sprinkles. They just love to put as many in as possible. But you have to remember, if you're using a comma and you're reading something out loud, it is absolutely a pause. But there's another way to approach commas. Is you use commas to separate different clauses, but you cannot use it to separate 2 independent clauses, which are pretty much 2 standalone sentences. So the way that you check these is if you are looking after the comma to the right-hand side and you see something that is making it a standalone sentence, that should be a red flag. And 8 does a really good job with this. It says on 8, which choice makes the sentence most grammatically acceptable? And then this one is going distinctly flavorful chili peppers for centuries that use indigenous agricultural techniques to create a seasoning called pimenta. And we're just going to call that pimenta J because I cannot pronounce that word. So if you're looking at it, what's kind of different with these is as centuries, comma, which use, centuries, no comma, who use, and then centuries using. So this one right here with G, this one make 2 independent clauses. With H, centuries, who use, that one is not quite right. And then on this one right here, your most unique one is centuries. Using indigenous agricultural techniques to create seasoning. So a couple of things with that one. One is it's the one that stands out the most, and it's also showing one other comma technique, is that when you have two commas, like I touched on earlier, the stuff can be eliminated in the middle of that section. And what you do is if you put a comma right here, and then you already have a comma right here, if you eliminate that, it still works. So then you know still J is the right answer. Okay, that being said, last but not least is transition words. I've seen these a lot on the SAT, but now they're really sneaking into the ACT. They're really not that challenging, but transition words are just how you move between sentences or how you move from different paragraphs. The key thing for this is really going to be your context. And you're really going to have to ask yourself, are you reading the whole thing? I had a student who was missing every single transition word, but actually what worked, and I figured it out pretty quickly, is he was not reading the sentence above and the sentence below. But once you do that, your score should organically go up. So in this situation with number 30, in traditional museum display, each artifact is labeled and positioned at eye level with plenty of space between it and the other options. Subsequently, artifacts in visible storage spaces are placed close together and are often displayed from floor to ceiling with a few labels. So on this, you've got to figure out what is happening in the passage to figure out the transition word, which is why I was saying read above and below, and also really focus on the context. So you've got subsequently, which be a little bit of a conclusion. Conversely is going to be like the opposite. Namely is really kind of stating it out, and then granted is something that is automatically assumed. So in this part, it's talking about in a traditional museum display, each artifact is labeled and positioned at eye level with plenty of space between it and other options. Blank, artifacts in visible storages are placed close together and often displayed from floor to ceiling with few labels. So these right here are different. And so what you're going to go with is G, conversely. We know that prepping for the ACT on the English and honestly on every section can be a challenge for many students. My name is Rebecca Beard, and at our company in Niceville Tutoring, we work all the time one-on-one and in classes with students online and in person to help them increase their score. If you are looking for someone to help increase your score, our link is in the bio, and we'll try to include some free resources as well. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. And if you have any specific questions, come meet us in the comments. Happy studying.